Farms are meant to be places of hard work and quiet nights, but sometimes they hide something far more sinister. Tonight, I will be sharing 3 terrifying encounters that will make you think twice about what lurks beyond the barn doors. Get comfortable, turn off the lights, and listen closely, because out here in the countryside, when something watches from the dark, there's no one around to hear you scream. I was 17 when I saw it. My family owned a small farm on the outskirts of town, acres of cornfields stretching into the distance, bordered by a thick tree line. It was quiet, isolated, and honestly, pretty damn boring. That night, my parents had gone into town, leaving me in charge of the farm. It wasn't a big deal. I had done it plenty of times before. Just a simple checklist: feed the animals, lock up the barn, check the irrigation system. But before heading inside, I heard something off, a low rumbling growl. At first I figured it was a coyote. They weren't uncommon around here, especially at night. I grabbed Pa's rifle from inside the house, flicked on my flashlight, and made my way toward the sound. The growl had come from the cornfield. I hesitated. That wasn't right. Coyotes stuck to the woods or the edges of the property. They never went into the corn, but I had livestock to protect. So I stepped between the rows. The stalks were tall, towering over my head, swaying lightly in the breeze. The smell of earth and dry husks filled my nose. The flashlight beam barely cut through the dense field, but I kept moving forward, heart pounding. That's when I heard it. Something breathing, slow, deep, too big to be a coyote. I stopped walking, holding my breath. My hands tightened on the rifle. Then, something moved. A rustling ahead, maybe 20 feet away. I aimed the flashlight, trying to spot it through the rows of corn. And that's when I saw the hand. Long clawed fingers curled around a cornstalk. I froze. Not a paw, not a hoof, a hand. I swallowed hard, my pulse hammering against my ribs. Slowly, I lifted the flashlight beam higher. Then I saw its face, a dog-like snout, lined with jagged teeth, tall, pointed ears, twitching slightly, and worst of all, glowing yellow eyes. They locked onto mine, unblinking, unmoving. Then I blinked, and suddenly, it was closer. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over my own feet. It moved without moving. 1 second, it had been 20 feet away. Now, it was 10. I hadn't heard a single step. No rustling of corn, no crunch of dirt, nothing. Just closer. I tightened my grip on the rifle, my breath coming in short, sharp gasps. My flashlight beam shook in my hands, flickering against the creature's dark fur, highlighting the unnatural length of its limbs. Its chest expanded and deflated with slow, deliberate breaths. Its clawed fingers flexed against the cornstalk, the sharp tips digging into the husks. But it didn't move. It just watched me. I swallowed hard, forcing my voice to come out steady. "Get out of here," I shouted, raising the rifle. Nothing. No reaction. Not a flinch. Not a flinch. Not a twitch. Just staring. A deep growl rumbled from its throat. Low. Almost like a chuckle. Then I heard it. Panting. Not from the thing in front of me. From behind me. Cold terror shot up my spine. I turned the flashlight slowly, heart hammering against my ribs. The corn behind me was swaying. Something big was moving through the stalks. I wasn't dealing with one. I was surrounded. I forced myself to move. Slow steps backward. 1, 2, 3. The thing in front of me didn't move, but the breathing behind me grew heavier. I could feel it now. Something large. Something watching. The way the corn shifted. The way the stalks bent. I could tell whatever was back there was massive. I clenched my jaw, gripping the rifle tighter. I had 2 choices: fire a shot and hope it scares them off, run like hell. The way this thing moved without moving, I wasn't sure I'd outrun it, so I did the only thing I could. I pulled the trigger. Boom. The gunshot ripped through the silence. The flash lit up the cornfield for half a second, and in that second, I saw movement. A blur of black fur, a flash of teeth. Then the cornfield exploded. Something rushed me. I turned and ran. The stalks whipped against my face as I sprinted, heart hammering, lungs burning. The ground was uneven, every step a risk of tripping, but I couldn't stop. I heard it behind me, fast, too fast, not crashing through the corn like an animal, gliding through it, silent as death. My flashlight bounced wildly in my hand, catching glimpses of shadows moving alongside me. Then, a clawed hand shot out from the corn. I dodged just in time, nearly falling, the wind of its swipe brushing my back. It was toying with me, letting me think I had a chance. I pushed harder, the farmhouse ahead just barely visible through the stalks. If I could just make it to the porch. Then, something lunged from the side, and I felt it grab me. The claws wrapped around my arm. I felt the sharp tips pierce my skin, not deep enough to rip, but enough to hold me in place. My body whipped sideways. As I was yanked into the corn, I lost my grip on the flashlight, and it spun through the air, landing somewhere in the dirt. The beam flickered wildly between the stalks, casting long, jagged shadows. I thrashed, swinging the rifle with my free hand, desperate to break free. And then I saw it, up close. Its face was inches from mine, the muzzle wrinkled back, revealing jagged, yellowed teeth. Its breath was hot, foul, like something long dead, but it was the eyes that froze me in place. Glowing yellow, intelligent, amused. I was nothing but prey, and it was playing with me. Then it opened its mouth, not to bite, to smile. I don't know why that was worse. Adrenaline kicked in. I didn't think, I reacted. With a wild swing, I slammed the butt of the rifle into its face. Its head snapped sideways, and I felt its grip loosen just enough. I ripped my arm free and ran. The farmhouse was so close now. The porch light glowed in the distance, a beacon in the dark. I could still hear it behind me, not crashing through the corn. Pacing. I wasn't being chased. I was being herded, forced toward something. But I didn't stop. I pushed harder, legs screaming, lungs burning. And then, the corn ended. I burst into the clearing, my boots skidding on the dirt as I sprinted for the porch. I grabbed the door handle, throwing my weight against it. Locked. Panic surged through me. I fumbled with my pocket, trying to yank out the keys. Then, I heard the creak of wood, and I knew. It was on the porch. I didn't turn around. I forced the key into the lock, twisting hard. The door gave way, and I stumbled inside, slamming it shut behind me. I locked it, bolted it, backed away. Silence. My breath came in short, ragged gasps. I waited, and then, a low thud against the door. Not a slam, not a scratch, just a single slow press, as if something was leaning against the wood, listening. Then, a long deep breath, right against the doorframe, like it was savoring the moment. My hands shook as I reached for the rifle, my finger hovering over the trigger, but it didn't try to break in. It just stood there. Then, a slow dragging scrape of claws down the wood, a single deep chuckle, and then, silence. I didn't sleep that night. I sat by the door, rifle in my lap, heart hammering, listening to the wind rattle the windows. Morning finally came. I waited until the sun was high in the sky, before cracking the door open, rifle still raised. Nothing was there, but in the dirt, right outside the door, I saw them. Footprints, massive, deep, leading from the cornfield, and stopping right at the doorstep, like it had been waiting, like it had been thinking, like it had been deciding. I never told my parents what happened, but that night, I locked every door, every window, and I never stepped into the cornfield after dark again, because I knew it was still out there. I grew up on a farm in rural Nebraska, miles away from the nearest town. Life was simple, early mornings, long days, and hard work. We had cows, horses, and chickens, and our land stretched out far, bordered by miles of cornfields and a few scattered tree lines. Out there, the nights were pitch black, no streetlights, no neighbors close by, just the open sky and whatever lurked in the darkness. I never thought much about what might be watching, until the night something got into the barn. It started small. Our animals had always been calm, but lately, they were on edge. The cows refused to go near the back of the barn, stomping their hooves nervously. When we led them in, the horses shied away from their stalls, eyes wide, ears twitching at sounds only they could hear. Even our old farm dog Rusty wouldn't go near the barn anymore. I'd see him at night, sitting at the porch, staring at the barn. His ears would be flattened, tail tucked between his legs. Sometimes he'd let out a low, uneasy growl, hackles raised. I should have known then. I should have listened. Then came the footprints. I was out one morning checking the fence line, making sure none of the cows had wandered off, when I noticed something wrong. The dirt road near the barn, where it should have been nothing but tractor tracks and cow prints, had something else. Large, deep imprints. At first I thought maybe bare human footprints, except they were too long, too clawed. I squatted down, running my fingers along the indents in the dirt. Each print had 5 toes, but the tips ended in deep curved gouges, like something sharp had pressed into the earth. And the worst part, the tracks led from the fields to the barn, but they never led away. I felt my stomach tighten. A chill ran up my spine. Despite the heat, I turned, scanning the fields, the fence line, the tree line in the distance. Nothing, just the stillness of the farm. Something felt off. I told my dad about the tracks at breakfast. Probably just a bear, he muttered, flipping through the newspaper. We don't get bears out here, I said, and these weren't bear tracks. He shot me a look over his coffee cup. Then maybe it's a prank, some drifter messing around. Either way, ain't nothing to worry about. I didn't argue, but something in his tone, the way he dismissed it so quickly, made me uneasy. I had a feeling he knew more than he was letting on, but I left it alone. Until that night, until I woke up to the sound of breathing outside my window. That night, something breathed outside my window. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't Rusty. It was slow, deliberate, deep enough that I could hear the air dragging through its lungs. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, too afraid to move. The room was pitch black, but I didn't need to see. I felt it. Something was out there. Then, a tap, soft, gentle, right against the glass. My breath caught in my throat. I turned my head, just a fraction, heart hammering against my ribs. The curtains were drawn, but the silhouette behind them wasn't right. Too tall, too thin. I squeezed my eyes shut, willing it to go away. And for a moment, silence. Then, the tap came again, followed by something worse. A voice, low, raspy, wrong, come outside. I didn't sleep. I stayed awake until dawn, body rigid, ears straining for any sound. The tapping never came again, but the breathing didn't stop until the sky turned gray with morning light. When I finally got the courage to peek out the window, there was nothing there, no footprints, no sign anything had been there at all. Just the barn, standing silent in the early morning mist. At breakfast, my dad barely looked at me. "You all right?" he asked, flipping through the newspaper. I hesitated. Last night's fear felt ridiculous in the daylight, but I could still hear the voice in my head. I wanted to tell him. I wanted to say, I heard something. Something was outside. But instead, I just nodded. "Yeah, fine." His eyes flicked up for half a second. Then he went back to his coffee. Something about the way he ignored me, dismissed it like it was nothing, made my stomach churn. I wasn't stupid. I saw the way his hands tightened on the mug. He knew, and he wasn't saying anything. That night, I locked my window, but it didn't matter, because something was waiting for me anyway, in the barn, and I was about to find out why my dad never talked about it. The next day, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The animals were worse. The cows stayed huddled at the far end of the pasture, their eyes wide, nostrils flaring. The horses wouldn't go near the barn, stomping their hooves and snorting whenever I tried leading them close. Even Rusty, who was usually fearless, kept his distance, watching the barn with his ears pinned back. Something was inside, and I needed to know what. By afternoon, my dad had driven into town, leaving me alone with the farm chores. Normally, I wouldn't think twice about it, but today, the house felt too quiet. The wind barely moved. The air felt thick, like the whole farm was holding its breath. I stared at the barn door, heart hammering in my chest. Then I made a decision. I was going inside. The door creaked open, the dim light from outside, casting long shadows across the barn floor. The smell of hay, dust, and something else, something foul, rotting, hit me immediately. I swallowed hard, gripping the rifle slung over my shoulder. The barn was empty, but it wasn't right. The stalls were undisturbed, the feed bags untouched, but the back wall, where the animals had refused to go, had deep, jagged claw marks. I stepped closer, running my fingers over the splintered wood. Whatever had done this had long, powerful claws. Then I noticed the trap door, a section of the wooden floor, barely visible beneath layers of hay, slightly ajar, a black hole leading downward. My stomach tightened. I had lived on this farm my whole life. I had never seen this door before, and then I heard it. A soft creak, something moving beneath me. I took a step back, heart slamming against my ribs. I wasn't alone. The wood beneath my feet groaned. Then, a clawed hand shot up from the trap door, long pale fingers wrapped around the wooden edge, followed by another, curling and digging into the floorboards. My throat closed. Then, slowly, it pulled itself up. I froze. A gaunt, elongated figure emerged, its too thin body covered in stretched, leathery skin, its head tilted unnaturally, like it was trying to understand what it was looking at. It had no eyes, just deep black pits where they should have been. And then, it smiled, a wide, jagged grin, stretching too far across its face. And in my father's voice, it whispered, "You shouldn't have come in here." I staggered backward, my pulse hammering so hard it felt like my ribs would break. The thing lurched forward, its clawed fingers scraping against the floorboards, pulling its emaciated frame up from the darkness. Too tall, too thin. Its bones popped and cracked as it straightened, its neck tilting at an unnatural angle, as if it were listening. But it wasn't listening, it was smelling. I saw its chest expand, its ribs pressing through sickly, pale skin as it took in a slow, deliberate breath. Then, that smile widened. "You smell like him," it whispered, "my dad." I wanted to run, to bolt for the door, slam it shut, pretend this never happened. But my legs wouldn't move. The thing tilted its head again, as if amused. Then, it moved, not walking, not crawling, sliding, a jerking, unnatural movement. 1 second, it was pulling itself from the trap door. The next, it was right in front of me. I felt the air shift, a wave of rotten breath washing over me. My body locked up as its clawed fingers twitched, stopping just inches from my chest. It didn't touch me. It was waiting, like it wanted to see what I would do. And then, a whistle, low, sharp, outside. The creature flinched. Its head snapped toward the barn door, shoulders rising, its grin twitching. I knew that whistle. My dad. I felt my legs again. I ran. I burst through the barn doors, just as my dad came striding toward me, shotgun in hand. His face was hard, unreadable. Inside, his voice was sharp. "Parkun," I didn't argue. I ran past him toward the house, but before I reached the porch, I looked back, just in time to see the thing in the barn doorway. It didn't step outside. It just stood there, smiling, watching my dad. And in a voice too close to mine, it whispered, "Welcome home." My dad didn't move. Neither did it. They just stood there, staring at each other. The thing's grin frozen in place, its two long fingers curled against the edges of the barn doorway. I waited for my dad to raise the shotgun, to fire, to do something, but he didn't. He just said, "Go inside." His voice was low, steady, but there was something else in it, something I'd never heard before. Fear. I hesitated. Then the thing in the doorway twitched, just a flicker of movement, like it was testing how close it could get. My dad cocked the shotgun. Now, I ran. Inside, I locked the door, chest heaving, pressing myself against the wall. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Through the window, I could see my dad standing in the yard, his shoulders squared, the shotgun still pointed at the barn. And the thing, it was gone. But the barn door was still open. And my dad didn't come inside for a long time. When he finally walked in, his face was grim. He set the shotgun by the door, and poured himself a drink. I waited, watching him, waiting for him to say something, anything, but he just sat down at the table, running a hand down his face, like he was exhausted, like he'd been through this before. I swallowed hard. Dad, he didn't look at me. I licked my lips, forcing the words out. What was that? For a long time he didn't answer. Then, something that was here before us. The room felt colder. I clenched my fists. What does that mean? He exhaled slowly, staring at his glass. Then he looked at me. Really looked at me. His voice was calm, tired. It comes back every few years. It watches, it waits, and then it chooses. I felt my stomach drop. I whispered, chooses what? His fingers tightened around the glass. Who disappears? I couldn't breathe. The room felt smaller, the walls pressing in. I forced myself to speak. Has it taken someone before? My dad didn't answer, didn't need to. I knew, I could see it in his eyes. His father, my grandfather, I had barely known him. Just that one day, he was gone. We don't talk about it, my dad said. We don't go looking. We don't open the barn at night. And we don't. A sharp knock at the door. My dad froze. So did I. The blood drained from my face. Slow, deliberate. Not a person's knock. Not a visitor. A lapper. A tap. A gentle, patient tap. Just like on my window. And then, through the thin wooden door, in my father's voice, it whispered, "Let me in." The knock came again. Slow, measured, patient. The house was silent. Neither of us moved. My dad tightened his grip on the shotgun, his knuckles turning white. Through the thin wooden door, the thing spoke again. But this time, it wasn't my dad's voice. It was mine. Let me in. We left the farm a week later. My dad never explained why. He just told me to pack what I needed, loaded up the truck, and never looked back. He didn't try to sell the house, didn't try to fix the barn. He just left it behind, like it belonged to something else, like it always had. It started with the livestock going missing. At first we thought it was coyotes. It happens. Animals get desperate, find a weak spot in the fence, and take a few chickens or a calf. But this was different. There was no sign of struggle, no tracks, no torn up carcasses left behind, just empty stalls, gates still locked from the inside. Then we found the first body. It was one of our bigger cows, nearly 1,500 pounds, found 20 yards from the barn, or at least what was left of it. The thing had been torn apart, not eaten, not dragged away by a predator. It looked like something had played with it. The legs had been twisted unnaturally. The ribs cracked open like a snapped twig. The head was missing, nowhere to be found. And the worst part, the marks on the barn, deep, jagged claw marks in the wooden doors, too high up for a coyote, too thick for a mountain lion. Something big had done this, something strong, and it had come inside. Dad didn't say much when he saw the body. He just stood there for a long moment, staring, his jaw set. Then he turned to me and said, "We're locking the barn at sundown." That night, we barricaded the doors, reinforcing the locks, nailing planks over the weak spots. We weren't sure what we were keeping out, but I had a feeling it was still watching us, waiting. The howling, it came around midnight, low, deep, a sound that didn't belong to any animal I knew. At first I thought it was the wind, howling through the trees, but then it shifted, turning into something more deliberate, something intelligent. And then, the barn shook. I heard a loud, thunderous impact against the wooden doors, like something had thrown its full weight against them. The animals inside screamed, the terrified braying of horses, the panicked stomping of hooves. Then came the scraping, long, slow claws, dragging down the wood, a breathy huff, followed by a deep guttural sniff. It was smelling us. Dad grabbed the shotgun and shoved a rifle into my hands. "We don't open that door, no matter what," he whispered. Another thud shook the barn, harder this time. A splintering crack rang through the night. A splintering crack rang through the night. It was testing the structure, seeing if it could get in. I swallowed hard, heart hammering in my chest. Through a small gap in the wooden slats, I caught a glimpse of movement. Something huge, something standing on two legs. Then the breathing stopped. Silence. The animals were still. For a moment I thought, maybe, it had left. Then from the darkness, I heard it speak. A low, gravelly, mocking voice. I smell you. My breath caught in my throat. The voice was wrong. Too deep, too rough, like something trying to mimic a human but failing. Through the wooden slats, I saw movement again. A tall, shadowy figure, hunched but still massive, its breath fogging in the cold night air. Then, a clawed hand reached out, pressing against the barn door. The wood groaned under the weight. The thing let out a low, throaty growl, almost like a chuckle, like it was toying with us. Dad took a step forward, shotgun raised. You come any closer, I'll blow your damn head off. The thing stilled. For a long, terrible moment, it just stood there. Then, it laughed. Not a full laugh, just a short, breathy huff, as if it found the threat amusing. Then, without warning, it slammed into the barn. The entire structure shuddered. Wooden beams cracked, dust raining from the rafters. The animal screamed. Another impact. This time, the top slats of the barn door splintered, giving way to a set of glowing yellow eyes that locked onto me. The thing opened its mouth. Its teeth were too long, jagged and yellow, and when it smiled, its lips pulled too far back, revealing gums that were raw and dark. I could hear it breathing. Then, bang! Dad fired the shotgun. The blast lit up the darkness, revealing a massive fur-covered figure. Its body twisted in unnatural ways. Its shoulders hunched like a predator ready to pounce. The shot hit its shoulder, but it barely flinched. Instead, it let out a deep, rattling snarl, stepping back into the shadows. And then, silence. We waited. Minutes passed. The horses were still stamping their hooves, restless, terrified. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear. Dad didn't lower the shotgun. We listened, and then from far off in the cornfields, we heard it. A howl. Not just one, two, then three. And then, the woods were alive with them. There wasn't just one, there were more. And they were calling to each other. Dad grabbed my arm. We're leaving. I barely had time to process it before he was shoving supplies into bags, grabbing whatever he could. We can't stay here, he muttered, his voice shaking for the first time in my life. It's not safe anymore. I stood there staring at the barn, the gaping claw marks in the wood, the smell of blood and musk still hanging in the air. We had lived here my whole life, and now, we were just leaving. Dad, now. We left the next morning. We didn't even pack everything, just enough to get by. By the time the sun rose, the barn was quiet again, but the animals wouldn't go near it. And the claw marks, there were more of them, all over the walls, as if something had spent the whole night circling the barn, watching, waiting. We moved to a town 3 states away. Dad never talked about what happened. He never spoke about the barn, the missing livestock, the thing in the dark. But sometimes, at night, I'd wake up and see him standing at the window, shotgun in hand, staring into the fields. And I knew, whatever it was, it hadn't forgotten us. And one day, it might come looking again.